Latitude and Longitude 101.
When we talk about where things are in the world, how do we describe that? If you were to describe where something was, would you say that it was above Africa or that it was to the left of Russia? What if we don't know where those places are? Luckily for us, the world has been divided into sections using latitude and longitude. These are lines of latitude, and they travel from east to west, and they divide our Earth into sections from the North Pole up at the top down to the South Pole at the bottom.
Now, if we combine those latitude and longitude lines, you can see that there's a grid formed on the Earth. And by this, we can locate anything on the world. Let's take a look at New Orleans, for example. These are lines of longitude. As you can see, they go up and down, or vertical, from north to south. All right, let's start by looking at New Orleans. We always begin with latitude, and we start at the equator. In this case, New Orleans is up or north from the equator. So we begin by counting up until we find the line that New Orleans sits on. Can you tell that New Orleans sits at the 30-degree north latitude line? Next, we have to figure out the longitude. And for this, we always begin at the prime meridian. In this case, we are moving left or west. So, starting with 10, 20, 30, 40, keep going until you find the line that New Orleans sits on. Did you figure out that New Orleans sits at 90 degrees west longitude? That means that New Orleans coordinates are 30 degrees north, 90 degrees west. Now let's take a look at Washington, D.C. Start at the equator and go up until you find the line of latitude where it's located. Then start at the prime meridian and go left or west to locate its longitude. Can you tell what it is? Here are the actual coordinates for Washington, D.C. Were you close? Please note that the latitude is always listed first. Here's the globe again with all of the latitude and longitude lines included. Take a moment to figure out which hemisphere, north or south, each continent is located. North America is in the northern hemisphere because it's north of the equator. It's in the western hemisphere because it's west of the prime meridian. Europe is in the northern hemisphere just like North America because it also is north of the equator. However, Europe is in the eastern hemisphere because it's almost all east of the prime meridian, even though there is a little bit to the west of the prime meridian. What about South America? Did you guess that it's mostly in the southern hemisphere? It's also completely in the western hemisphere, just like the United States. What about Asia? Asia, like Europe and North America, is in the northern hemisphere because it's north of the equator. It's also in the eastern hemisphere, like most of Europe, because it's east of the prime meridian. As a matter of fact, when people say the East, they often are referring to Asia. Africa is a little bit hard to pin down. While it's more in the northern hemisphere, there's also a good portion of it in the southern hemisphere. How about east to west? Well, while there's a little bit of Africa in the western hemisphere, you can see that almost all of it is in the eastern hemisphere. Africa is certainly a big continent. Okay, that's 5 continents. We're only missing 2. What are they? Oh yes, Antarctica and Australia. Neither of those are shown on the map, so your job is to go find a globe and locate both continents. Figure out, are they in the northern hemisphere or the southern? Are they in the eastern hemisphere or the western? That concludes today's lesson on latitude and longitude. You're welcome to refer back to this video as often as you like. Goodbye.